He cheats at chess.
How do you know? You don't play chess.
And now this thing with Molly.
Oh, come on, that's bullshit. John is as straight as an arrow. He
You
is.
think that, but look at his chin. That's where the bullshit starts.
Okay, I'm sorry, his chin? What about his chin?
Haven't you ever looked at those old pictures hanging in their house? He has no chin. Now he has a chin. Think about it.
My character is Ellen. I play Jason's wife, Jim's wife, and pretty much I really liked the story of the DeLorean. I feel like it's like this weird, like, American story, like kind of a self-made man, but kind of not. Obviously a genius who can design a car like this, didn't get to see his dreams come true. But in the story, like, so many times I read the female role, the supporting role, like, is just so underwritten. It's so, like, you have to work so hard to bring something there, to make it come alive, to give her a story, to give her a journey, to give her a point of view, and there's just never that much on the page, unfortunately. And so it's always great when you work with a writer or a director who's willing to, like, take it there with you. And, like, I feel like I have to guard my characters so closely, and I have to take such good care of them once they become mine, because they need to be represented correctly, you know? And that doesn't always mean making them good people, obviously, but it means just, like, making sure that their story is told too. And I felt like this character of Ellen was so well written. She was, like, had a real journey. She was smart. She chose not to care about certain things that she probably should have cared about. She, like, closed her eyes to some of the crap her husband was doing. But I felt like there was so much meat on the page that I was excited about it. I haven't done a ton of period work, and it's really fun. And there's things about it that I feel like are cheating a little bit, because as soon as you do your hair and your makeup and you have those clothes on, you're like, oh, I know who this person is. But, like, you can't be deceived by that. Like, you still have to remember that, like, even little things like our mannerisms are different now. Like the slang we use, when you're improving in a scene, like, you have to be careful. You can't just say, like, something is like rad balls. Like, they didn't say that in the 70s or 80s, you know, like, it's neat or it's cool or, like, things like that. And you know, your mannerisms, your references, like how you hold yourself. How would this woman, you know, I see her sometimes, this character Ellen, like, when I watch the movie, like, sitting on the couch, and I'm like, gosh, like, nice life. But it was like, that was a time when she probably did sit on the couch and fold laundry during the day. And, like, she didn't have a job. She didn't, you know, she was a mom and she was a wife, and she was very happy doing that.
You're in Where'd You Go, Bernadette? You play the committal, friendly psychiatrist. What was that like? And were you able to see, did you end up, like, seeing through your character eyes? Like, where did you side ultimately?
I love that book so much. It was such a big deal when it came out. I read it in one day. I loved it so much. I wrote to Richard Linklater and was like, can you please put me in your movie? I'll do anything. He was like, well, there's one role I haven't cast. It's this psychiatrist. And I was like, I'll take it, whatever. And so even though I was playing this role of this person hired to help commit Bernadette to a mental facility, I always side with Bernadette. Like, I love her. I love the story of her. And so that was one time where I was playing a role of someone that, like, I didn't totally agree with. But I also, from that character's perspective, she doesn't know any better. You know, she's hired to do her job, and she does see that this woman has, like, completely, like, pulled away from society. And in the eyes of someone in, like, the mental health industry, I'm sure that seemed like a reasonable solution.
Hello, Cheryl.
It's Carol.
What? Since when?
Since I had it legally changed because you always call me Carol.
I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Me neither.
Now it's Crystal?
Crystal.
You've been doing that voice for over 10 years?
Yeah.
For about 10 years?
We're about to start our 11th season.
When you took that job, did you think it would last this long?
I didn't think it would become a TV show. I was like, there's no way you can make a show and say this many naughty things on the air, on FX. I mean, it was FX, is FX, but, like, still, like, you can't, like, we were strangling people while they were having sex, and like watching them like take poops on the toilet. Like there was just like so much like dark, naughty stuff that wasn't even about like the killing and all the violence and just everything. I mean, it's obviously animated, so you can get away with clearly a lot more. But when I recorded the pilot, I was like, oh no, this is never happening. And I recorded the pilot while I was on location shooting something else, and I just like honestly didn't even think about it. I was like, this is so funny, it'll never get picked up. And then I feel like honestly like 2 years later they were like, Archer got picked up, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like I didn't even remember. And at the time my character was a sad sack who was pining for Archer in the pilot episode. She was like an assistant at the agency, which was called ISIS, which like we had it first, guys. Anyway, it was called ISIS, and I just was an assistant there, and I was like in love with Archer and pining for Archer, and she was like crying all the time. So I was like, how did it go from like that to like this crazy person that she became? It was very sweet. They were like, well, you came on board and we had to like make it better for you. And I'm like, well, thank you. That's a huge compliment. Also, what does it say about me that making her totally out of her mind crazy was because of me? But that's okay.
What's the workload like on that show? Like how? Like,
I don't even want to tell you. Anywhere from about 15 to 20 minutes per episode for me. Like I think we book a half hour or maybe an hour depending, but really I'm not in there that long. And the guys who direct it and produce it at this point, they're just like, okay, great. Like I like to read the scenes out loud with them, and I can tell that they're sometimes like, can we just like do the lines and be done? Like, why do we have to read? I'm like, I like reading the scenes. Like, it's fun.
You're like, I want to hear the other side.
I know. And they all are so good. They're all in Atlanta, so they call in on the phone, and they're all like really good at imitating us. So it's really funny when I do read a scene, and it's like, obviously it's not John Benjamin, but like he sounds just like John Benjamin when he's reading it with me.
Do you think they decided that you were going to be a little crazy on the show because of Arrested Development?
That's probably why, actually, now that you mention it, because it was around that time. Yeah, and Kitty was crazy.
Take off your glasses. Oh. Wait. Let down your hair.
Yeah, that's probably why.
I've heard that you said that you're recognized most for that role. Is that still true?
Yeah, that, and I think maybe 13 Going on 30 was on cable or something. I can always tell like when something's on a channel or on TV, or if it's on HBO, for example, like people be like, oh my God, you're from that. But yeah, that or 13 Going on 30 right now.
I would imagine that even 2.5 Men, you would get like
a lot of that, specific. But less in LA and New York, and more when I'm in the middle states.
That checks out.
Yes, that tracks.
Can you keep track of Kitty's whole story arc? Like, do you know where she's been over the 4 seasons?
Oh, Arrested?
15 years. No, because I didn't get those scripts. They didn't even sometimes have scripts, I don't think. They would ask me to come to work, but I wouldn't ever really know what I was doing. Because it was just kind of like, oh, can you work tomorrow? Can you come out to this location at 6 a.m.? And you're like, okay. And then you would get there and figure out what you were doing. So the arc of my character is tricky in that way. I mean, she did bone most of the Bluths. And she did end up, I think, she obviously works for Ron Howard now. I don't know how she got there. Kitty has secrets. That's the one thing I will say that always was true. But not what's under her sweater, because everyone saw
that. Yeah.
Did people yell at you?
Yes. And I just got a really kick-ass piece of fan art that this woman, Cate Cutthroat, she does those like cross stitches that are naughty. Sent me one that says, say goodbye to these, and it's 2 boobs with the nipples in different directions. It's so cool. I posted it on Instagram. It was really great.
I live in reality now. It's not as colorful, but I see the world how it really is.
The world is a perfect circle of endless possibilities.
It's not a circle. It's a hole.
what's like working with Jim Carrey and then, Michelle Gondry's EP on that show.
Yeah.
What's that situation? I mean, like, how is that different from other things you've worked on?
I guess the combo pack of like Jim and Michelle makes it feel like it's kind of, sometimes it's hard to compliment one job because it sounds like the other ones aren't like it. But I would say that there's a feeling of making art more than making a show. Sometimes my natural inclination in a scene, like to cry maybe, is like, no, that's wrong. Like, we're playing against that. So like, she's not gonna cry here. Instead she's like, whatever, painting her nails. It's like, but that's like dark what she's saying. Like, yeah, no, it's trust. And I do trust. And like, that's another thing I feel like that happens with people of that caliber is that and maybe you shouldn't always, but I trust them so implicitly. I don't even really ask questions. I just kind of like to do what they tell me to do because I know that they're thinking of it in a way that like I can't understand even. And then Jim is like this like genius that like is so, I mean, he's so incredible. He's so talented. He is so like careful and specific about what he wants to bring to each scene that I don't know, I was like watching him the other day, actually last week, and there's a scene where like we run into each other at a place and like I just had one of those like weird like, is this my life moments where like I'm like looking at him and I'm like, it's Jim Carrey. Like, I'm in a TV show where I play Jim Carrey's ex-wife. Like what happened? Like, how did I get here? I mean, he's like the biggest movie star like there is, I don't know. And like, yet, like he'll pull his chair over to mine and be like, why don't they put my chair by yours? I never understand that. And I'm like, I know, well, we can tell them to put it by mine. And like,
hang out?
I kind of wanted to be like, I think they don't think you want to be around regular people. But I didn't say that out loud because I don't think he totally understands sometimes. Like I'm pretty sure they put your chair all by himself because like,
I think you need artist space.
Yeah.
Famous guy space.
Famous guy space.
There's like the famous like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I bet you could do like
oh my God.
6 degrees of Judy Greer, but probably like a 4 degree.
Yes, I was thinking 4 probably.
You have to go to your IMDb and be
I know. I'm like, I can't look myself up on IMDb anymore. It's too embarrassing. If I can't remember, then I shouldn't be allowed to know. But yes, I do think I could get to a lot of people in like 2 or 3 at this point.
Especially because you are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I'm glad you said universe. I did an interview with someone that was like, you're in the Marvel family. I'm like, it's the universe. It's the Marvel universe. But yeah, now I'm in the Marvel universe. So there goes everyone.
Are you going to be like at Comic-Cons now as like, hey, here I am, Scott's ex-wife? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Comic-Con for Archer a lot, and I do have people have me sign stuff like from Ant-Man and Planet of the Apes and Jurassic World. Like, I have to sign stuff for that stuff too, which is great. It's fun to be in big franchise movies.
I mean, it seems like some family members have gotten brought in, so there's still a chance that you could end up.
I don't know why they don't make me have a superpower, because I feel like I should. I know. I was asking Peyton after the second one, I was like, what if, like, I have some superpowers from, boning you all those years ago or something. Like, not Peyton, I meant Scott. This is getting weird. Like, why wouldn't she have, I don't know, or like her daughter?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's happening? I don't know. I really am not saying anything. I don't know. But I would like to have a superpower.
I think it's possible.
I've also never been in a, like, action movie, which you could kind of count those as action movies. That would be fun.
Yeah. You don't really have a ton of action.
Mm-mm.
Well, there's like some driving, maybe? No, I don't know.
Probably not in that one. No.
I can't think.
People don't like to put me in the middle of action, it turns out.
Was your first credited role in Stricken, or was it Early Edition? They're around the same time, so it's hard to kind of know.
Far back jump. I don't know. I would think maybe it was, I really hope it was Early Edition and not Stricken.
Kyle Chandler, right?
Yes, coach. I know. It probably doesn't remember working with me, but I did meet him a few years ago at like a some party for the Emmys or something, and like my husband and I are always like the first people at these parties, and then he was there too, and I was like, oh my God, let's go say hi to Kyle Chandler before other people come and start talking to him. And so we walked up to him, and my husband was like behind me slightly, and we had to like walk up these 2 little stairs, and I'm like walking towards Kyle Chandler, and I see his face just like go like this, and I'm like, oh God. And I look back, and my husband was like, oh, like tripped on the stairs and like flying through the air and like caught himself on furniture, and it was a really great moment.
And when you talked to him, you didn't mention Early Edition.
I can't remember if I did or not, but I know at the time my stepdaughter was like very into Friday Night Lights, and so we were talking to him about it, like, oh, you're so great, and yada yada. And then we talked, we were like, oh, we're watching Friday Night Lights at home, blah blah blah. He's like, oh, I'll make a video for your daughter, and like he offered to do it and took my phone and like did the thing, like a little like speech for her on the phone, which was cool.
That's really cute.
I know, it was cute. I liked that because I never offer that kind of thing ever.
I mean, what do people want you to do? Like, oh, can you be mean to me? Like from 13 going on 30?
A lot of times they want me to scream, you're not my supervisor, at someone else's voicemail.
You're not my coal mine supervisor! Wait, who is my supervisor?
You were in the 2018 Halloween, and you're going to be back for its 2 planned sequels. Were you a fan of the original movies, and what can you say sort of about what you know going forward?
I can't say anything because they have me, like, they're recording me at all times now that I've read a draft of the script. I was a fan of the original, but not like, I don't have like Michael Myers tattoos on my body or anything. Like, I'm not like that fan, but like I liked them. And then going back and doing my homework once I got cast, I mean, I was a huge Jamie Lee Curtis fan and like a huge David Gordon Green, Danny McBride fan. So I was like, how is it that the movie I'm making with these people is Halloween? Like, I don't understand, but I'll take it. But then going back, so once I was cast and like doing my homework on the Halloweens and like watching the original and like reading all about it and like getting sort of like really emotionally invested in the story, and then working with Jamie during the rehearsal process. I mean, shooting the movie with her definitely, but even during rehearsal was my first time hanging out with her and spending time with her. And I thought she just was like I was like, oh, we're making a horror movie. It's going to be so fun. And she's like, no, this is a story of trauma. And like, we're dealing with a major trauma that and like her like commitment to the like deepest parts of this story, like the meta story of this woman, I was like, oh shit, like we're not just gonna be like bashing people's faces in. Like, she has like a soulful experience with this franchise and with this character of Laurie Strode. I mean, that was like her first job, and she's been living with Laurie her whole life, and it was so awesome and not what I expected, but I was so into it. Like, I was like, I was, like I said, I thought I would go there and be like, woo, we're gonna like tear shit up. And it was like, oh no. Like, this is,
like, you know. I get a chainsaw.
Yeah. Like, and I like shoot a thing. No.
Do you want to talk about Elizabethtown or Untitled Ken Finkelman Project?
Wow. I mean, either, golly. Really interesting that I did that show with Stephen Colbert 100 years ago. The Untitled Ken Finkelman Project, one of my first pilots. Would have been so, yeah, I don't know. And then Elizabethtown was like, I love Cameron Crowe so much. I think he's so great. And I liked her character, but I just liked being in a Cameron Crowe movie. I don't want to say anything bad about the movie, but I will say that, and this might not be bad, it's just like, I felt like the story was strong enough without the love story. The story of this guy feeling like he was a failure and going to try to kill himself, and he fails at trying to kill himself, and then finding out his father's dead, and he has to go and get the body and deal with that and bring the body back to where they can bury it, is like such a beautiful story. And it's so sad and heartbreaking and heartwarming in the way that Cameron Crowe's stories are. But then to like always, like you said, have to add in a girl, have to add in a love story. Like, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the idea of these two people kind of falling in love and meeting, but I just don't think that,
I think there was enough.
You have often played the friend, the
Yes.
sidekick.
Yes. I'm a very good support system. I'm a supporter.
To a Jennifer Lopez, to a Jennifer Garner.
I did all the Jens. I was working my way through the Catherines.
Did you get Aniston?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Love Actually. No, that's a real movie that people love. What was mine called? Love Happens.
Okay.
Which is also a real movie that not as many people love. Love Happens was the movie I did with her.
Yeah,
where I
you got
play her best friend.
Katherine Heigl.
Mm-hmm. I always was like, oh, I want to do Katherine Heigl, like Kate Hudson, Kate Blanchett, which I did end up playing a role in a movie, but not her best friend, but still.
You could be best friends someday.
Kate Winslet. We could. She was so cool. You can't be best friends with someone that you think is like that you're like afraid of because they're so cool. Although I would say I think my best friend is like the coolest person in the world. But since I've like seen her fall asleep like under a table at a house party when we were in college, I feel like
that'll do it.
It definitely lowers her down to like my level.
Why do you think that you're so often cast as like the funny support?
I don't know. I think you get sort of put in a box sometimes early on in a career, and you just get seen as like that thing. And that's not always a bad thing, you know? I mean, I have starred in things before, and none of them have been super successful, so maybe they're right. I don't know. But I early in my career, I sort of killed it as a famous person's best friend, and so I think that's like where I got like my sweet spot. Like my husband always says, not always, but once he was like, now we joke about it a lot, that I'm not America's sweetheart, I'm America's best friend. Which,
if you wrote another book, like you could call
that could be
America's
it.
Best Friend.
I know, America's best friend.